By a show of hands, who here listens to podcasts? Wow, amazing, a lot of people, that's great. For those who are not familiar with a podcast, it's simply a digital audio platform on any smartphone where you could listen and stream to any show of your preference. I didn't know it back then, but I was in a position where I was started watching TV and radio, and I was seeking to get more information on a different platform. But lucky for me, I discovered at that time podcasts, which is very enjoyable, but also very vital to my life. Fellow Toastmasters and fellow guests, what I absolutely love about podcasts is that you have the power to select and listen to any subject matter you want to hear. It doesn't matter how niche it is. You enjoy soccer, or there's dozens of podcasts that talks about soccer. It doesn't matter the league. And I know you love fitness and nutrition, but there's dozens of podcasts that talks about good fitness and optimal nutrition. There are a wide array of shows that you could explore, from sports to news to meditation to true life crime and everything in between. It's very diverse, and you can listen to anything at your leisure. On a serious note, podcast was also very instrumental in a very challenging period in my life. When I was diagnosed with a rare neurological condition called CIDP in 2019. At that time, I didn't know what the diagnosis was, but I was deteriorating at a rapid pace. I didn't know, my mind was gone, and I just remember me being at the hospital, wheelchair bound, 80% paralyzed. I was very depressed at that time, and I was not on my luck. I had my iPhone 8 with me at that time. And even though I was very weak, I was able to muster up just enough strength to scroll and press play on that iPhone. I was listening to familiar voices of hosts that I was used to listening to, talking about sports highlights and comedy. Thinking about it now, it brought it was like sweet serenade to my ears. It gave me a sense of normalcy I was desperately seeking at that time. Me not knowing what my outcome was gonna be. Needless to say, that helped me go throughout the year with countless injections and medications, seeing doctors, PABs and the likes. The following year, I was discharged from the hospital, but I was up with another challenge. It was 2020. We all know what happened in 2020, right? COVID, yay, sheer sarcasm. So I was coming from one lockdown, being paralyzed on a chair inside of a hospital, to being in another lockdown inside of my residence. Couldn't go outside because of lockdown. It's like getting out of the frying pan into the fire. Jeez, can I get a break? OMG. Well, after going through several weeks, binging through Netflix, watching shows like Tiger King and The Last Dance, said to myself, okay, I have to get my life in order. I know I'm in a bad position, but I have to find an exit out of this, right? So, since I was already listening to podcasts, I decided, instead of thinking about the entertainment side, I started thinking more of the educational side. Scrolling through and looking for shows that would help me work on facets that I was neglected a lot in, like personal development, financial literacy, and also having healthy debates. So by scouring through all of these shows, I was able to find a couple of podcasts that were very useful for me, a couple of gems. Shows like Earn Your Leisure, which talks about finance for young African Americans, something that I can relate to. Earn How to Money, which talks about healthy money habits, something that I was neglecting early on in my life with all my bad money decisions. And a show that a lot of you are familiar with, Joe Rogan Experience, top 10 podcasts worldwide. I listen to that show because I hear a wide array of guests that has healthy discussions. It's very important for me. Listening to all of these shows helped me have a different perspective on the way I think and how I see the world. But more importantly, it helped me work on a muscle that admittedly we all take for granted, our brain. I was paralyzed, don't forget. So using my brain as a muscle helped me develop eventually organic intelligence that I still use to this day, listening to all of these shows. So for those who have never tried or listened to any podcasts, if you have a smartphone, give it a try. There's over 3 million shows or channels that you can explore. It doesn't matter the subject matter. And to conclude, I got a quote from Socrates that I've took on one of the podcasts called 7 Good Minutes. The wisdom lies in knowing what you don't know. Safe to say, me standing in front of all of you guys right now, I developed a lot of wisdom. Thank you very much.